All right, hello, ladies and gents. Here's that second video I was talking about. All right, now I'm going to talk about something else that's going to deviate from considerations within your group, and this is kind of to dispel some illusions that some people might have, and I'm sure some of you have ran into these types when you've been out and about doing your training. I don't know how many times I've run into when somebody comes up and they start asking me questions, and I'm all about asking questions, but I find in the course of answering questions, I have to dispel a lot of illusions that some people have created for themselves about what they're actually going to be able to do in a situation where they have to take the fight to the zombies. Okay. And one of the main ones I have, and it's not really age restricted on who makes this or asks this questions thinking that they're going to be able to do it. It's young people as well as older gentlemen. But there's a difference in how they ask. And that's this idea that they're going to be some type of sniper. Okay. And I try not to be exasperated when I answer this question, but if you find yourself in that camp, just please consider what it is I'm about to say. The first thing I'm going to say is I'm not a sniper. Okay, I was never a sniper. I worked with snipers before in combat. I have a lot of respect for their skill set. The skill set that I came from when I was enlisted had a lot of overlapping skill sets. Even when I was an officer, as a fire support officer, we had overlapping skill sets because a lot of the things that we did were very, very, very similar. But this idea that you're going to be able to go and get to an overwatch position and be able to start murking zombies at 800 meters with your 360 no scope or whatever it is that you're going to do, it's just, unless you've been trained to be able to do that, and if you've been trained to be able to do that, you're probably not asking me this question in the first place. But it's not going to play out how you think it's going to play out, most likely. And here's why. First of all, the primary duty of a sniper, of a scout, of a forward observer, which all three of these have about 80% overlapping skill set, is to get to an area that you can observe. Observation. All right. You are going to have to go to the forward edge of the battlefield in small teams, 2 to 4 man teams, or even beyond the forward edge of the battlefield without being detected. And you are going to observe an area for enemy activity, or if you see enemy activity, you're going to observe what they're doing so that you can report it back to a higher headquarters, to a main unit that's going to have your combat power. Understand, the combat power in any organization is not coming from your scouts or your snipers or even your forward observers. They're coming from the guys on the ground that are in those fire teams and squads and platoons that are going to lay down that base of fire and fire maneuver onto the enemy. You are fulfilling the function of the eyes and ears. Okay. Now, if you're young and you're asking that question, chances are you don't have the skill set to even get to a hide location or an observation post. Okay. To me, that was it was one of the most difficult parts of that skill. You got to carry a lot of gear. You got to be able to maintain your location for a period of time, days. You're pooping in Ziplocs. You're constantly updating your camouflage. You're constantly having to make sure that you're paying attention to what's in front of you. You're creating sector sketches. You're registering known points and reporting back to that higher headquarters so they know what's going on the battlefield. You're carrying 100 pounds worth of equipment, and you have the capability to engage those enemy zombies, But understand, the second that you fire a weapon system, you've now revealed to the enemy your presence. All right. And this is the thing that needs to be dispelled. If you think you're going to be able to indefinitely engage targets from a hide location, and the enemy's not going to figure it out, and they're not going to bring in zombie mortars or artillery or aircraft, helicopters or whatever onto your position eventually, and it doesn't take very long. The more shots you fire, the easier for it is to bring in their cone of fire onto you. And if you find yourself getting pinned, you don't have the firepower to fight yourself out of that situation. If you're older and asking this question, maybe you have a skill set as a hunter. Maybe you do know how to infiltrate, but you're slower. Your eyesight may not be as good as it once was. Maybe your gut's hanging over your belt. Do you have the physical capability to maintain a location for 3, 4, 5, a week, or days, and then into a week, or even longer? Are you going to be disciplined enough to make sure that your personal camouflage is maintained, that the branches and stuff that you use to hide your observation post or your hide location are changed out every 24 hours so that your foliage doesn't look different than the foliage around it because it's dying? You know, do you have the knowledge to know what to look for? Can you cover your tracks? Do you have egress locations planned out? All right. If you haven't even thought about any of these things, why don't you focus on the fundamentals of just carrying a rifle before you start getting into the weeds of a skill that takes professionals a long time to get good at, okay? Because otherwise you're going to end up being more of a liability than you are an asset, okay? The key, like the main job of any one of those 3 skills is to put the eyes on the battlefield, to give us the edge of information, to be able to shape and inform the decisions that are being made by those that are going to be the main effort when they go out and they engage and destroy those zombie enemies in close combat, okay? So understand that. And furthermore, I've been asked, you know, what would be a good... They just assume that they're, some of these individuals just assume that they're going to be able to do the job. And they're like, oh, what would you suggest? Would you suggest like I got an M1 Garand? You think that would be good enough? And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, can you mount a scope on an M1 Garand? I'm sure you could, but there are better systems out there for that. If that's all you got, great. That's a 30-06. Okay, 30-06, there's a lot of them out there. But, you know, do you know what you're asking? Do you have enough stripper clips for your M1 Garand to stay in a fight if you find yourself in a fight? Do you know what to look for? Do you know how to spot? Because the enemy is not just going to be walking around if they can help it and be easily identifiable. They're going to cam you up too. They're not going to lay around in the open. They're going to find themselves in cover and concealment. And you know, those zombies know how to try and not be observed. And there's telltale things that you need to look for in your skill set to be able to spot those things. You know, what would a standard battle rifle be good enough? Maybe. I mean, it depends. What's your engagement distance? The engagement distances between Iraq and Afghanistan generally were much, like in Afghanistan, they were much further than they were in Iraq. Why? Iraq center, more or less, most of the combat actions happened in urban environments. You have shorter sight lines. You got more places to hide and shorter sight lines. So your engagement distances at the most might be 200 meters. So in that situation, you could be a sniper and engage 50 meters and have enough cover and concealment to conceal that shot and get out of dodge. Whereas, you know, if you're in the mountains of Afghanistan or the Rocky Mountains fighting zombies, your engagement distance might be well over a click or 1,000 meters. Do you have the rifle marksmanship or a weapon capable of engaging at that distance? And if you do, why are you engaging at that range? In what situation in that world would you have a need to engage past 300 meters? which is the standard engagement range of your standard battle rifle. You know, and if you have to engage past 300 meters, do you have the training and capability to consistently hit zombie-sized targets out at 500, 600, 700, 800 meters? All right. You got to know your limitations. All right. If you're going to engage at those ranges, are there AR or M16 AR platforms that can engage 400, 500 meters? Sure, of course. Yeah. Is it the round I would prefer to use at those ranges? Probably not. Look, all right, we got two different 5.56s here, right? Now, those of you who've ever shot a 5.56 before know this is basically the military steel jacketed or steel cord, 62 grain M855s. And that right there is just your standard 55 grain full metal jacket, all right? Well, what's the difference between the two? Well, if I got zombies that are wearing level 3 body armor, the body armor will stop that, but it probably won't stop that, all right? Even some level 3 plus body armors, it won't stop that. If you want to make sure that you're stopping that one, you need to make sure you got level 4s. All right. So if my zombies are wearing body armor, knowing the difference between the two, and here's the thing: the further I shoot with these rounds, the less chance it's going to penetrate that. Why? Because I'm losing muzzle velocity at range. Right. These things, out of a 16-inch barrel, both of them are moving about 3,000, 3,100 feet per second. All right. Out of a 20-inch barrel, you're getting the full you're getting the full capability. Standard 20-inch barrel out of an M16A2. Now, these things are 3,200, or 3,250 feet per second at the muzzle, right? And you're maintaining pretty good muzzle velocity around 3,000, just under 3,000, all the way out to about 300 meters. But once you start dropping down, like once you go out 400, 500 meters, the 5.56 drops off tremendously past 300 meters, right? Well, if I'm hitting level 3 plates with this at 400 or 500 meters on those zombies, it may not penetrate. So just something to think about. Now, I don't have a 308 anymore, more 7.62 by 51 NATO, but I do have a 300 Win Mag short, right? I like this round. It's not fun to shoot, but I hit with it, and this thing can effectively engage easily out past 600 meters. This thing is a 170 grain bullet, all right, which means that it is 2.5 times heavier than that 62 grain, and it's moving at about the same muzzle velocity. All right, so and this thing will shoot far straighter over range than that 5.56 will. All right, so if I have to engage, if I'm on an observation post or I'm on a hide location, no, like this is coming out of a bolt action rifle, and so I would only be engaging probably individual targets. And remember, once you fire one round and they know there's a sniper around, if you can hit the person that you're aiming at, but then everybody else is going to take cover. Same thing with artillery. When I call in artillery strikes, that first volley of artillery is what matters, because after that everybody gets down and they take cover, and then my effects on the battlefield are it's suppression at that point. I'm not killing a lot, right? Same thing with snipers. You get that first kill, everybody knows there's a sniper around, everybody takes cover, and they start doing their discipline scanning or whatever, trying to figure out where they're at, or they vacate the area. All right. So if I'm going to take the shot, I want to make sure I hit it and I put it down when I do take that shot. Oh, by the way, the second that I take a shot, I leave. I move. Shouldn't be firing too many rounds from the same location if you're on a 2-man or 4-man team, because that's a team that's going to get outmaneuvered and pinned down and then destroyed in detail. It happened in Iraq. I was in Ramadi. We had sniper teams that were literally getting overrun because they were on hide locations too long, or they had a guy falling asleep on guard. And that's the other thing. If you're staying there days after days after days, and you're on your 4th iteration of a week-long patrol or a week-long scouting mission, and you're on less than 4 hours of sleep at night, that lack of sleep and the caloric burn and the wear and tear in your body add up over time. So don't just assume that you can be the most disciplined soldier in the world. Everybody's got sleep, and it happens to the best of us. And there were teams that we suspect fell asleep in Ramadi and in Fallujah and in the early part of the war in Iraq, and they were overrun and killed outright. That's why we came out with the small kill team concept, to give them bigger teams for survivability. So hopefully I'm helped clear out some of those ideas on what you are and what you are not going to be able to do on a zombie battlefield. And just understand, train with your weapons, test your gear, know your capability. It's actually really hard to shoot long range effectively. It's hard. It's a hard skill, and it's an expensive skill. If you're on the civilian side, you got to burn through thousands of rounds of ammo to effectively be able to engage past the 600, 700, 800 meters if you're using a 7.62 type ammunition. You got to understand the different standard conditions like wind, humidity, heat, and just your effect on the weapon system just by touching it. And then the non-standard conditions, things that you can't even account for. If you don't have that down, don't assume that you're going to be able to just rise to that occasion. And you're going to be like in your group, like, hey guys, I got Overwatch over here. Okay. What makes you think you're qualified to provide Overwatch for anybody? All right, so if you have the skills, keep training on those skills. They're perishable. If you don't have the skills, get good at doing the groundwork first, working within a team. And then as you build your proficiency on that, you'll build the foundation to be able to get a better proficiency for that more long-range, observational, stealthy type skills that would be necessary for you to be able to effectively provide the Overwatch. With that being said, I'll call this one. I'll call an end to this video. If you got any questions for me, please put them in the comments. I look forward to your questions. Outside of that, have a good day. Have a Merry Christmas and stay frosty.